all of you wonderful people, and you, yes you know who you are. For today I want to cover Raum. I haven't covered a Paladins video in a long time. Paladins has been broken for a long time. Still is. But wanted to talk a little bit about Raum. Raum is the newest champion that has released, which has also dropped Io down to the shit tier finally, where she belongs. You notice how unfortunately I have Koga here. I kind of need a new character to get introduced so I can bump Koga out of there. But Raum is the newest frontline character in the game, and I have to say I am impressed and underwhelmed at the same time. Now, I waited to do this video for a while because I wanted to see how he plays out meta-wise with him not being in ranked, mind you, just how he pairs with other tanks, other supports, get some interactions with him, more than just actually like hardcore cramming him and getting to know the character inside and out and every single interaction, just from a casual perspective as to how he handles. My thoughts? The visual design for Raum is incredible. This is his Subjugator outfit. Very well done. I like the Abyssal Lord. I do like that. It pairs well with the Drogo skin to have basically this Abyssal army. If they introduced a couple more of these skins, I would actually kind of like that. Have this little Abyssal Lord army thing going on with an Abyssal Lord Raum and Abyssal Lord Drogos. Maybe having an Abyssal Lord Zin, you know, or an Abyssal Lord Talus maybe. You could have a support that you have an Abyssal Lord type thing, maybe an Abyssal Lord Grok or Ceres. I think those could work very well, because the best you can get is put like maybe Soul Eater Genos with it. That would be a unique kind of concept to kind of have like this Abyssal Lord army. The default Raum is also not bad by itself. I do definitely prefer the Subjugator. The Subjugator is just awesome. This should actually be the default in my opinion, and the default should be an alternate. Golden Raum as well is, you can tell like Subjugator Raum should be the main Raum, because they basically do that for the Golden Raum. So, all things aside, I do like the design of the weapon. His roar is kind of weak, but I do like his tribute emote as well. And for the MVP poses, we have this and default, which this is better. But, why am I covering that? Design perspective. Raum occupies basically the same realm that Ruckus does. To be clear, there's a big problem right now with tank players in this game that say that there are only two main tanks in the game. There's Anara and there's Barrack, and that all of the other tanks are off tanks. That you cannot play anyone as an off tank. Well, that's just simply not true. To discount the fact that Makoa cannot be run as a solo tank, to discount Terminus can't be run as a solo tank, Fernando can't be run as a solo tank, Khan can't be run as a solo tank, Atlas can't be run as a solo tank, Ashe can't be run as a solo tank. That's bullshit. All of those tanks can be run as a solo tank. The only ones I would say can't are Ruckus, because Ruckus is mostly a DPS. He pretty much relies on his mobility and his personal shield to keep him alive, to just soak up bullets. And you have Torvald, who plays as an off tank, where his job is to kind of like support the rest of the team. But, in my opinion, Torvald and Ruckus can tank, well, at least Torvald can tank better than Raum can as a solo tank. Now, Raum, when you look at the numbers on him, this is the problem with Raum. Raum has 4,500 HP. Okay, which is more than a lot of the other tanks in the game. He has more base HP than Khan does, more base HP, or actually no, Fernando has a little bit more. More base HP than Term, a lot more than Torv, more than Barrack, the same as Makoa. Nora has more. I think Ashe has more. No, same as Ashe, more than Atlas, and more than him. He has all this extra HP. Why is Raum such a bad tank? Well, so looking at Raum's abilities, it's important to understand his passive ability first. So every 6 shots that hit an enemy will create a soul fragment. by running near them or activating your L1, you can regen this. And you can have up to an additional 4,000 soul armor. Okay? So potentially, and as important to note, he does have a loadout card that gives him an additional 750 HP. This puts him at 5,250 plus an additional 4 grand. He seems like the end-all be-all tank. No. Look at the rest of Raum's abilities. So this is what Raum basically has. He has a 500 round minigun with a 3-second windup. That's what I'm going to call it. It's a 3-second windup to reach maximum attack speed, and it deals 90 damage every 0.1 second. So in the same amount of time that a Victor is going to fire, Victor is going to deal 110, 120 a shot. He's dealing 90. So a little bit less DPS than some of your damage dealers. He's less than Vivian, less than Tyra. But he has 500 rounds in the magazine. Okay? And his damage buffs his health pool. He has an L2, which basically automatically spins up the gun and consumes no ammo for 3 seconds after activation. Basically, after you reload your gun, this is what you're going to do. You're going to reload, and you're going to have your gun ready and go... So, yeah. Not particularly scary of a weapon. But it does its job. It counters one of the things, but it makes it so you kind of have to, like, not reload as well. You have your L1, which is Soul Harvest. This is the only way you can reduce your damage, pretty much, because what this does is it will generate 2,000 soul armor, and it will draw any loose souls to you. Basically, this is if you're killing people and dealing damage at long range, and you're not going over to get it, like it's off the point and you're, say, solo tanking, and you don't have the ability to collect all of this to you, that's what Soul Harvest does for you. It just draws all that to you. The important thing with Soul Armor that's not listed anywhere is that the Soul Armor that you get is not cauterizable. It cannot be healed. So your healer can only heal you up to what your base HP is. They cannot heal the 4,000 soul armor. Your soul armor is not affected by bulldozer, cauterize, or wrecker. It is not affected. It's just an extra health bar that you have. Why that's so important is because of the fact that it's basically a second health bar. It's like if you've ever fought a video game boss before and they do a lot of damage. Then you have Juggernaut. This ability gives him the most to second most mobility in the game. This lets you charge for 4 seconds. You deal 700 damage to each person you hit, and it applies a 900 knockup. To put that in perspective, there's a card for Dredge where Broadside knocks you up. That card at level 5 is 900 knockup. So that's just if you need a comparison point. If anyone knows what I'm talking about, that's what it is. To each individual person that you hit, and you can hit people multiple times and re-knock them up for 700 damage. And you can't be knocked up as much while charging. This gives him a great degree of mobility. And because he moves at the same speed that a mount does, it means if you dismount him early to try and keep him from getting to point, if he has Juggernaut wound up, he can get to point very quickly. It is not a deterrent for him at all. He has very strong mobility, he has very strong damage, and his ult is insane. So what his ult does is, it is a shockwave. He slams the ground, and it deals 1,000 damage and stuns enemies for a little bit more than a second. It also destroys any shields or deployables in its path. It does deployable walls, but it's also hit or miss. Sometimes it will actually destroy, like, a warder's field, but not barrack turrets. And I don't understand the interaction with that. It doesn't destroy a barrack turret, but it'll destroy a warder's field. It destroys Ying clones and Vivian mines, but it doesn't destroy Luna. That's an interesting situation. And I thought maybe it has to do with health, so I ran a build that involves buffing the amount of health that I have on my turrets, and that had no outcome. I had a turret that had no extra health, and it did not get destroyed. I had a Ying clone where I added an additional 500 health to the clone so it wouldn't die to this, and it still died. So I don't... It's kind of hit or miss how the interaction is with certain deployables. But it destroys shields, and it destroys most of your deployables. It does root you in place, but it gives you CC immunity. And I think that's a very important thing to note, because he is heavily countered by CC. The important thing to note with Raum is pretty much designed to counter the other tanks. Like, remember I said Anara and Barrack are the two big main tanks right now that everyone talks about. Well, Raum's ult destroys Barrack's ult. Raum's ult destroys Makoa's half shell. Raum's ult destroys Anara's wall and can potentially eat her ult if she's throwing it and he counter ults her. He can actually destroy it. Like, Raum is actually designed for taking out some of the other tanks in the game that are kind of hard to deal with. And when it comes to supports, there's not really a lot Raum can do to deal with them. Most of the support ults in the game give the user CC immunity, or they come out quickly. Like, you can't counter the Aceras ult with it, other than the CC immunity yourself. I mean, there's a few flank ults I guess you can counter. No, I think Andro's CC immune in his ult, if I remember correctly. No, it doesn't say. I think Andro is actually CC immune in his ult. Yeah. Many people have made the comparison that Raum is basically Vivian, but with a lot more health. I would disagree. The big difference between Raum and Vivian is that Vivian does not have mobility. She's a very static, I am going to have suppressive fire. She has a large magazine and a slow reload. But she can build her kit into, if she's not missing shots, she's not consuming shots. So she potentially does have more ammo than Raum does and deals a lot more damage per shot. So basically, Vivian's counterplay is she can outgun people. That's her thing. She has to outgun them. She doesn't have the mobility. She has her personal shield, but if you take out the shield, she pretty much has nothing. She can't really run away. And where I think Raum is superior to Vivian in that, because I got that comparison so much, and it's just not the same. Raum has mobility, and no matter what, mobility is huge. He has the best movement ability out of the tank category, period. It doesn't necessarily mean he has the most mobility, but he has the best movement ability, period. He does not have to... Some people make the argument that maybe Khan has it, or that Ashe has it, where Ashe has her battering ram for the 90% DR, but it's hard, very hard to control. It's a straight shot, and it has a long cooldown, which you can actually trick getting Juggernaut out more often with cards, which we'll talk about in a minute. Another one, people say, oh, well, Terminus is, Shatterfall is great because of the stun on it. No, mostly, the fact that he gets the reset if he doesn't actually land, like if you knock him out of the air with it, and he gets it back, basically, that's kind of nice. And that lends it to being strong, but it is relatively easy to miss it, and you have to put points into it to be effective. Other than that, the last one I'm avoiding talking about is Ruckus, for a reason. None of the other tanks have any real mobility that's good. Khan is mostly a kill confirmer. You know, if a low health target tries to run away, you commanders grab after them. You know, you can run Vortex grab for the stun, but nonetheless, Raum has the best mobility of the tanks in terms of movement ability. And his talent's buffed that. He has Enforcer, which I see a lot of people running. Basically, all this does is it lets you use your Juggernaut as a way to retreat, which you should never do. You, as Raum, you need to understand you don't use your ability to get out of a fight. You use it to get into a fight and start one. Subservience is incredibly weak in my opinion. Yes, you are healing allies for 100 health for each soul harvested, but realistically, unless you are trying to spam your soul harvest, to get like this big chunk heal to an ally that's near you that's low health, you should be letting your healer worry about the healing. The big thing for him is Earth Splitter. Having his ult up, it basically turns his ult into a long cooldown ability, like a Tyra Fire or a Drogo Salvo or a Shaolin Plant. Like your 18 and 20 second cooldown abilities, yeah, that's what his ult basically becomes with that card. There's no point in buying Morale Boost because of diminishing returns, but you also don't have to buy Morale Boost because of this. So, where I think Raum realistically goes wrong is cards. Now, this is the big thing to talk about. Him and Ruckus occupy the exact same space. Ruckus, if you want a mobile tank, you run Ruckus, because they both serve the same purpose of being able to eat up damage. But Ruckus has a personal shield, so not only do you have to buy Cauterize to deal with Ruckus and his healers, you have to buy Wrecker. Raum does not have that. The shielding that Raum gets is not good, okay? It's not anything that's needed. I did run a build that, like, to try and force people to buy Wrecker. It doesn't work. Like, Ruckus with Aerial Assault actually has much more frequent mobility than Raum does. I'm sorry, he just does. But it's very hard to justify a Raum versus Ruckus fight. They do serve the similar positions. So let's look at his cards. So you have Sinister Allies. This increases maximum health. Must have. Must have at level 5. Bringing his health pool with max soul armor and max health up to a Makoa ult, there's just nothing you can really do there. You have to focus fire him down. War-Torn Plains is actually pretty bad. So this reduces the time it takes to spin up your Gatling gun by 4%, but this card is completely outmatched by Ignition. Putting 5 points into this card is a waste when you could have Abhorrent Vista in there more often, because after you reload, you're going to want to use Ignition to get a jump start on your gun, rather than running this card. This card is just outmatched by other cards. Even as a filler card, I never see a point to this because I always activate Ignition as soon as I'm done with the reload. If it's not on cooldown, I may consider using another ability in like Juggernaut or Soul Harvest instead of like waiting. I will wait for the Ignition to come back on. Infernal Reload. Again, I don't really notice this. I did run a build around it. His reload is so long. I put this card at level 5. I ran Deft Hands with it. I wasn't impressed. It did not realistically cut down my reload time. Like, when I was reloading, that was the time where basically I was, like, out of a fight. There was no one that I needed to shoot, so I just reloaded because I knew I had the time on my hands to do it. If you need to reload in the middle of a point fight, this card's not going to help you. I put this card at level 5 with Deft Hands 1, so I wouldn't get hit with diminishing returns. It would cap at the 60% reload speed, and I could not get a reload off in the middle of a firefight. Not worth it. Desperation, I experimented a lot with this card to see if I could make it work. A 1250 health shield for 3 seconds after dropping below 30% health on a character that has a very high health pool. It seemed great. It got destroyed instantly. You've got to understand the problem with him, with all of his shielding cards, because he has Desperation, he has Fanning the Flames, which is a 750 health shield after activating Juggernaut, right? And then he has Abyssal Connections, which is a 500 health shield for 3 seconds after activating Ignition. All these cards suck. They suck. Point blank. I tried. I ran a 600 health shield on Fanning the Flames. I ran a 1250 health on Desperation, and I ran a 400 health shield after Ignition, so I would have some form of shielding every single time. It does not work. You have to understand, teams are already going to be focus firing you. You're going to be taking so much damage. This shielding does nothing to help you. It does nothing to save you. They're already going to burn through it. And if you're paired with a second tank, because Raum is very hard to solo tank. He's in the same category as Ruckus, remember. You have to treat him like Ruckus with twice the health, twice the damage, but half the mobility. It doesn't work. Pairing him with the second tank means they're going to buy Wrecker to deal with you, unless you're being paired with Inara or Terminus. And Inara Raum is a great combo, But if you burn down the Inara, you're actually forced Raum to stay on point. And because Raum and Inara are both high health targets with a lot of sustain to them, people like Sky, Cassie, Tyra, the people that everybody says are Raum's big counters, will completely shred Inara faster than they will Raum. I do like Tormented Fissure. I think as a filler card or a main card, it's solid. Being able to regen ammo after you use Ignition means you can create builds where you have Ignition's cooldown reduced so that you regen about a quarter of your magazine every time. So you have 3 seconds where you don't consume ammo, you get a quarter of your magazine back, you only have to reload once or twice a game if you know how to play it right. It's a very solid card. I do enjoy it, but I would not recommend putting more than 4 points into this. I don't think you need to make this at 5. You can maybe make a build around it, but I just like it as a filler, just to give me a little bit extra ammo to help. We already talked about Important Vista. It's great, but it's only great at level 5. So it's one of those trade-offs that you have to make. Do you want the 3-second cooldown reduction, or are you fine at 10 seconds? I'm fine at 10 seconds most of the time. Hellish Lodestones, we're going to talk about this, and we're talking about Void Lord. So both of these reduce the damage that you take by 5% for 3 seconds after activating either Soul Harvest or Ignition. These cards seem great. Raum does not receive damage reduction on his Soul Armor. Very important to note. These two cards, which I run at level 4 for 20%. I don't run it at 25, I run it at 20 at tier 4 for the 20%. These cards are great for keeping you alive until your Soul Harvest comes back. Like, Void Lord is actually a pretty bad card if you have Soul Armor, because you're using Soul Harvest to generate Soul Armor, and pretty much the value of this card is if you're going to be using your Soul Armor to eat big damage. If you're using it to eat Sky ults, Bomb King ults, Tyra ult, Victor ult, Dredge ult, some type of a high, powerful ability that just is going to burn through you in like 1 or 2 seconds. You're going to get hit once or twice, and it's going to just, bam, take away all your damage. Void Lord is great for that because it reduces damage taken once the Soul Armor goes away. But because you can't reduce damage taken from your Soul Armor, it means that basically you're only getting the damage reduction on half your health bar. Basically, these two loadout cards are very similar to Undying for Terminus, where you drop below 40% of your health and you get the bonus damage reduction. That's how these cards focus, but they're loadout cards, and you can activate them off of 2 separate abilities, so you can kind of alternate using Ignition and Soul Harvest to keep alternating damage reduction if you're low. It's nice, but again, it's not a mainstay. This card is useless. 500 health after activating Soul Harvest. That is, if you have extra health, that is maybe 1/10 of your health back every time you use it. I'm just not a fan. If it healed you for an additional, let's say, 100 health, 200, 300, 400, whatever, for a certain amount of souls collected from Soul Harvest, I could see that being nice because it would be a chunky way to burst yourself up. It's just not worth it. This is a decent one, Shattered Essence, so Soul Fragments can heal you up to 100 health for each one you gather. This is a good way to sustain yourself if you're not full health, but you use your Soul Armor. It pairs well with Soul Harvest, but again, this is just a short way to fill up. I love Harbinger. Harbinger is one of your best cards, so this reduces the cooldown of Juggernaut by up to 5 seconds by activating Soul Harvest. So Soul Harvest has a 10-second cooldown, and Juggernaut has a 15-second cooldown. This card at tier 5 makes it so that you actually even the two cards out. This is actually how you reduce the cooldown of your Juggernaut. You can't reduce the cooldown of Juggernaut by other loadout cards, any of the Juggernaut ones. You can only do it by this card, and it's insane, because if you Soul Harvest and then Juggernaut in, and you have Enforcer on, you basically got a bunch of Soul Armor, and some damage reduction if they burn through your Soul Armor, to just tear through people. We already talked about Fanning the Flames. Apocalypse isn't great. A 750 heal for each champion hit by Juggernaut. This card's actually not very descriptive, because it does not stack. If you hit the same target twice, you're not going to get that 750 heal. So this makes it very limited in its use, in my opinion. If you kill someone with this card, you lose the effectiveness of the heal. Declaration of War, this is nice for increasing the potency of the knock up, but because it's not like a knock back, it's just a straight up into the air like a buck bounce house, not really great. Fanning the Flamethrower to chalk back, and one of my favorite meme builds is Subjugation, because increasing the distance traveled by 40% is insane. You add almost an additional 2 seconds to the runtime. It's huge. But I'm probably not going to get a game. More than likely not going to get a game. I talked for a long time because I really did feel like it was important to explain why Raum is the way he is. He's a damage character. He is Ruckus. He is Ruckus without the shield, with a longer dash, and more firepower. He's designed... He actually gets... And the other thing to do with Raum gets hard countered by Atlas. Because Atlas can rewind out of his... If he can use the rewind before Raum ults, he's got him. He can rewind Raum out of Juggernaut. He can counter Raum's ult by deploying Stasis Field. And he can rewind and get back to full health if Raum gets him weak. And he can also weaken Raum by rewinding him out of his soul armor.
Select a champion. Make your champion.
There's actually a couple of characters that can counter him pretty well. People talk a lot about, like, burst champion with, like, damage over time. So Cassie can do a good job. Tyra, Sky, etc. Other people do a decent job. Mochi and Pip negate his large health pool by giving him a static value. Guillotine Zin can completely counter him. It's nearly impossible to miss the ult on him because of how big his hitbox is. I would say another good character is Term, because Term can put up Siphon and force Raum to stop shooting. And if Raum kills him, he could return the favor by potentially killing him by re-ulting. Another character, Drogoz, obviously, is a great counter. Chain Reaction Bomb King, because he has such a high health pool, you can actually stick all 6 of your bombs on for Chain Reaction if you can get them off in time. So it does a ton of damage. Realistically, you should only be doing 3 or 4 bombs instead of 6, because you're probably not going to be able to get 6 off, but the big problem with Raum is the fact that he requires so much healing. Like, Raum, I think, was just introduced to buff healing and damage numbers in the game. I really do. Like, where they have 2 heals right there, that's great. I'm gonna run Earth Splitter. Where they have a Nara Raum right here, I kinda need my Big Daddy Talent. I need the Abhorrent Vista for this. And I'm gonna need Resilience, because he gets heavily countered by CC. So having the Warder's Field, having the Enforcer, the Stun, they have 3 solid CC-based champions. I need to weigh the value of that. The Resilience early is gonna be the key. But you'll see how quickly I'll get my ult up. The problem for me with Raum is he relies so much on the rest of his team dealing damage if he's a solo tank.
1. Capture point has fallen.
I will oftentimes use this instead of a horse, just because it gives me the ability to get on faster. I can get him down pretty easy. Alright, I'm using it now.
Enemy double kill. Enemy triple kill.
But that's all. You notice how no matter how much healing I have, I just could not stay alive through that. I need to pop on Rejuve, and I'll need to pop on Cauterize as well to cut out the healing. Stun on there first. Raum is kind of fun. You see, it's like, but the problem is, it's like the two Raums just have to sit there and kill each other because no one else on the team is capable of killing the other person. So it's like Raum v. Raum becomes very important. But you notice how I'm putting a lot of points into my credit game? I used it to destroy her warrior shield, but that worked.
In 15 seconds.
They have the 2-tank advantage here. Raum, just as a solo tank, is not good.
Capture point has fallen.
Show them no mercy. Capture the objective.
What's up?
Capture the objective.
My problem with King of the Hill, I don't like where the objective moves so much. Like, my problem with this is that my strength should be pushing them. Oh my gosh, that's tough. It's hard for me to get in. I'm doing that on purpose just to avoid.
Enemy killing spree. Enemy double kill. Enemy triple kill.
Get my soul armor up. You know, absolutely shredded. Feels like Gene went focusing. Pick up some more reju. I'll pick up another Dread. Should be buying Haven here, but they do have Dread. Why I'm not. I want to focus on.
Enemy rampage.
Why am I taking so much damage from them? Is my issue. Like, that Ying is doing too much damage to me for life exchange. I'm not buying that.
Show them no mercy.
See, this is kind of how you have to play Raum, though, by just moving in. Use that as a turret. Yeah, I'm gonna die. Like, I'm a bullet sponge. I have no real way to defend the team like other champions can, and that to me is a big problem. It really hurts his overall tankiness. He doesn't have the ability to, like, actually out-tank anyone. He just absorbs more damage than other people.
You are not welcome.
Capture point spawning in 15 seconds.
I want her dead.
Capture the objective.
Shot. Spawn is over here. This is where the value of his mobility comes in, being able to clear that distance so quickly. Now, I didn't use ignition there because I'm kind of taking pot shots here at range. Yeah, there's not a lot I can really do there. I can buy more caught to try and take it out. But they don't have any caught to deal with me, and I'm still dying because of how much damage I take. I am cauterized and he doesn't. I can effectively 1v1 him, basically. Like, there's nothing he can do to counter me. Unless he buys caught. be immune to each other. Knowing when to cancel is important, and like reloading right here is big, so I don't need to reload really. I'll use that just to give some automatic fire to cover her. I'll suck up the charges now while they put the wall up. Having the cost 3 is an insane advantage. Reloading now. So you have to like notice how I'm reloading. I'm reloading in between fights. Suck up all that health. Having a port Vista up so much is insane. So I've got that maxed out. That's good. I've got to focus now on getting up maybe some deployable. Just need to get in. Use that to get in immediately.
Capture point has spawned.
Yeah, where? There. Okay. Ooh, that was a bad idea on your part. Rather than just like try and peck away at him, that becomes an important thing to do.
Show them.
I've got to burn it here just to give myself a little bit of HP, but I can't. Bulldozer seems like the way to go, but maybe I'll go Nimble here instead of Bulldozer. I don't really need the Bulldozer. See, somebody on their team has Wrecker too. I do not understand why.
You are not welcome.
Let's try. Or not. The dredge is fucking eating me up. Dredging Ying damage is insane. I'm too busy fighting the other tank rather than actually like
Enemy killing spree.
up there. Being able to fire and use Soul Harvest is nice, but I'm just running in and dying.
Spawning in 15 seconds. Group up. Capture point has spawned.
Oh my god. It's over here, really.
Enemy rampage.
Time to take charge. Capture the objectives.
Shut up.
Incinerate them.
Double kill.
This is my birthright.
Enemy killing spree.
That 240 health I get is insane. But then again, that's just too much damage for me to take on. I just can't take that much damage.
Capture the objective.
Oh my god.
Capture point spawning in 15 seconds. Enemy double
Oh my
kill.
god.
Capture the objectives.
Capture point
Shut the
spawning in
fuck
15
up,
seconds.
people!
Broadside.
You are
Capture
not
point has
welcome
spawned.
here.
I'm gonna buy that.
Show them no mercy.
I couldn't main point that.
You have failed your team.
Heresy.
Yeah, that's a situation of just me being outmatched.
If you
Like,
stand
I
against
can't
me,
out
you
tank,
stand with
No.
the abyss.
double tank, double heal, which is really what you need with Raum. If you're gonna run solo Raum, you need to have 2 healers. You need to have a full main heal, and you need to have a second heal. These people were just idiots. But that's the state of Raum. Hope you enjoy.